Good morning. Democrat one-party rule in Washington has created crisis after crisis for the American people. And Republicans have a commitment to America to help save our country on behalf of the hardworking families. The proof is in the latest polling. I want to show you all the latest NBC poll that shows that voters trust Republicans more than Democrats to address America's crime crisis, economic crisis, and our historic border crisis by double digits. Border security, Republicans lead with 36 points. Crime, GOP plus 23. Immigration, GOP plus 19. Economy, GOP plus 19. Cost of living, GOP plus 14. Protecting rights, GOP plus 9. Uniting the country, GOP plus 6. The proof is in the polling, folks. You have heard us for over a year continue to talk about the issues that matter to the American people. House Republicans have been disciplined and unified in exposing Joe Biden and House Democrats' failed leadership. And it is clear right here that the American people are listening. Instead of providing meaningful solutions to these countless crises, Joe Biden instead went on 60 Minutes this weekend and downplayed America's inflation crisis. And we all know America's inflation is near a 40-year high. This type of rhetoric is not only reckless, it is woefully out of touch to the families in my district and across America who are experiencing the realities of Joe Biden's failed agenda and are struggling to buy groceries and heat their homes as we head toward this winter. Americans cannot afford another year of failed far-left Democrat rule in Washington. This week, House Republicans will be unveiling our commitment to America in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we will outline our Republican solutions to Joe Biden and House Democrats' crises that they created. We are focused on an economy that is strong, a nation that is safe, a future that is built on freedom, and a government that is accountable. In 49 days, Republicans will earn back the People's House, fire lame duck Speaker Nancy Pelosi once and for all, and fight for policies that put hardworking Americans first. And with that, I want to yield to my colleague Marionette Miller Meeks, who has been a tremendous member on behalf of her constituents in Iowa. Marionette.
Thank you so much, Representative Stefanik. Inflation is crushing Iowans and the American people. And it's not just gas prices. The price of groceries and school supplies continue to rise, hurting our families just as children are going back to school. But instead of addressing the rising cost of everyday goods, Democrats and the Biden administration continue to push for more legislation that will make these problems worse. The Inflation Reduction Act, which I like to call the Income Reduction Act, did nothing to help Iowans who are struggling to make ends meet. Instead, several $100 billion will be spent to fund partisan pet projects like doubling the size of the IRS. And less than 2 weeks after the Income Reduction Act was signed into law, President Biden announced his student loan forgiveness plan, which will cost hard-working Iowans and Americans even more. We need to increase domestic energy production to lower energy prices and curb our dependence on other nations, and we need to enact policies that allow Americans to keep more of their hard-earned paychecks. Inflation, unlike what you saw this weekend on 60 Minutes, where it was poo-pooed and downplayed, inflation is an issue every single American is facing right now. And the Biden administration has made it abundantly clear that fixing the problem is not a priority. Thank you, and I will now yield to Representative Tony Gonzalez from Texas.
Thank you, Marionette. You know, I've never been to Martha's Vineyard, but I have been to Del Rio, I have been to Eagle Pass, and I have been to El Paso, just like many of my Republican colleagues. Elise Stefanik and Kevin McCarthy, we were just in Eagle Pass not too long ago. Our whip, Steve Scalise, was down in the RGV not too long ago. Many of our Republican colleagues have been to the border over and over again. Who hasn't been to the border is our Democratic colleagues. And I think we've all seen that this House Democrat leadership has failed America. People are no longer safe. People in my district no longer feel safe. Last night in El Paso, there were children, small children, that had to sleep out in the streets. Does that seem like a safe America to you? Last week in Eagle Pass, there were children, small children, regardless of their legal status, small children that drowned in the river in Eagle Pass. Last year in Del Rio, there were tens of thousands, over 10,000 Haitians under a bridge. Nothing has changed with this failed House Democrat leadership. House Republicans, we have a plan. This commitment to America that we're going to roll out here on Friday is our plan to end catch and release, to make sure that there's technology at the border. Those 53 migrants that were found cooked to death in a truck in my district, that could have been prevented if there was leadership that invested in technology along the border. House Republicans are committed to that. We will continue to highlight the horrific actions that are happening on the border. What you'll find is House Republicans continue to talk about it while House Democrats fail America and fail to keep us safe. With that, I'd like to turn over to our whip, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you so much for the leadership that you've been providing to expose this crisis at our border, to talk about how bad this immigration crisis is that was created by Joe Biden when he opened up America's southern border. And when you see millions of people that have already come across illegally, what we are seeing all across the country, what's making every single community in America a border town, is the illegal drugs, the fentanyl that's coming across the border with the drug cartels taking operational control over our border when Joe Biden gave that away. 100,000 plus deaths of young people last year from fentanyl overdoses and other drugs that are coming across our border illegally. None of this needed to happen. And Republicans have tried over and over again to bring legislation to the floor to secure our southern border, and Democrats want nothing of it. They want an open border. Kamala Harris, who President Biden put in charge of the border, still refuses to go down to the border and then acts like she's in denial, goes on TV and says the border's secure. And then, of course, we saw a busload of illegal migrants coming to the Naval Observatory right outside of her house as she's saying the border's secure, and they're all being interviewed saying they came to America illegally because they know the border's wide open under the Biden administration. They created this problem. They don't want to fix it. We will. We're going to continue to push on this House floor to address these problems. Another problem America's facing, maybe the biggest problem that families are facing, is inflation out of control. The cost of everything that families try to buy is higher because of Joe Biden's policies, because of the trillions in spending, because of the radical regulations, and he continues to deny this is a problem. We saw him on 60 Minutes just the other night, acting as if 8.5% is really just 0.2%, because it was 8.3 and it went to 8.5, and he acted like it was just a blip, just a minor little change. And he had to be corrected by the 60 Minutes host and reminded that it's a 40-plus year high of inflation. It's not a minor blip. It's a major problem for families that Joe Biden's created, and he acts like it doesn't even exist. Maybe in his little bubble that he hangs around, the far leftists that talk about nothing but spending and doubling the size of the IRS. To them, that's economic stimulus. But to families, it's one more crippling blow after another that's making it harder for them to buy the things that they need for their lives. Good luck trying to become a first-time home buyer, because under Joe Biden's wild, massive spending spree with Nancy Pelosi, we've seen mortgage rates more than double, over 100% higher cost to get a mortgage if you want to be a first-time home buyer. So now they've even put the American dream, the ability to buy your first house, out of reach for many more Americans because of all their radical policies. So again, we're going to be rolling out our commitment to America this Friday, because we're going to show the country what a Republican majority would do to actually address and confront the problems families are facing that have been created by all of this radical far-left socialism, by Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and all of those other Democrats here in Washington who are voting right down the line, one after another, for these radical policies. There is a better way. We have an answer. We're going to provide solutions. With that, we'll be happy to take any questions. Yeah.
Have Republicans decided what H.R. 1 will be, and if so, what is it?
Yeah, we're going to be bringing bills to the floor early off in a Republican House majority that would actually confront the problems families are facing, like energy costs, like inflation, like border security, like security in communities. You know, we see out of control crime in communities all across America because Democrats embrace this crazy defund the police movement, and also now the no cash bail movement that is literally putting criminals back out on the streets committing more crimes in communities. So we're going to be bringing bills to the floor on all of those. We'll ultimately decide what those first 5 or 10 bills would be, but you're going to see a very active first 100 days of a Republican House majority working for American families, not growing the size of Washington, creating problems like we've seen under Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you. Can I ask you about the select committee hearing tomorrow on nursing home deaths?
Yes.
Have you heard back from former New York Governor Cuomo? And then what can we expect from this hearing tomorrow?
Yeah, we've invited him. I've reached out going back over a year ago when we first exposed this scandal, where starting with New York, at the time Governor Cuomo issued an order. And again, New York is the regulator for nursing homes in New York. So as the regulator, the governor mandated that if somebody was in a hospital that was from a nursing home, they had to go back to the nursing home. And then this is where it really caused devastating deaths that never should have happened. He mandated that the nursing homes cannot test people for COVID. So he blocked them from testing for COVID, made them take people who were COVID positive back from hospitals into a nursing home environment, even if they didn't have the ability to separate COVID positive from non-COVID patients. And we saw thousands and thousands of deaths in nursing homes that never should have happened, a national scandal. And it happened in other states because they took, in many cases, New Jersey, Michigan, took the New York mandate and almost cookie cutter copied and pasted it and put it in policy in their states against the CDC guidelines. So we're going to be pointing all this out again tomorrow at the hearing. I know Elise will be there as well, along with Marinette Miller-Meeks, who is not only a member of the subcommittee, but it was a health director in Iowa. So she really understands what the science should have been, and those states that went against the science led to thousands of nursing home deaths in their states that never should have happened. It's a disgrace. And I don't know if they want to touch on it. Yeah.
I just want to add, as representative from the state of New York, I've spoken to constituents directly who have lost their loved ones because of the fatal and illegal executive order that Governor Cuomo put out. But I also want to point out, we know Governor Cuomo was the worst governor in America, but his sitting lieutenant governor, Kathy Hochul, she also needs to be held accountable for this. She promised nursing home family members that they would have a fulsome investigation. She has failed on that promise. This is one of many reasons why she is bottoming out in terms of her approval ratings. And certainly my constituents, who these are very tragic stories, these are heartfelt, really cries out for your elected officials to make sure this never happens again. Our sitting governor has absolutely failed the people of New York, and I look forward to attending as a member. Even though I'm not on the select committee, I intend to ask questions on behalf of my constituents.
Cool.